Hey everybody, and welcome to our special live stream here with Gavin Wood. We have Gavin Wood in the house. Hey Gavin.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on and talking to us about this fascinating topic that's captured the attention of so many dot holders around the world. We're very glad to have you with us. What part of the
Lovely to be here. Cheers.
what part of the planet are you on right now?
Lisbon, I'm at the Polkadot Palace, actually.
Ooh, how's it going?
The construction is in full swing. I've stayed away from the main building. A lot of concrete dust there, I'm told. So I'm staying just by the pool. But yeah, it's nice. Had a run around the grounds earlier. It's feels nice to be back.
What's kind of built out that's you can enjoy without running into construction right now, or is it all just a massive project mess?
So this apartment around me is complete. It's the what we call the bowling alley. It used to be a bowling alley. The guy who owned the palace, like who built the palace, was into American bowl, like 10-pin bowling. Actually, it's 9-pin bowling. So he built it in like the late 50s, early 60s, and at that point, apparently American bowling was 9-pin bowling. So it's like a sort of diamond shape,
Okay.
just 3x3.
Yeah.
But yeah, we converted it into a bunch of apartments that will eventually be sort of, I don't know, vaguely dignitary, like the higher level of accommodation that we provide to people when they're staying in the Polkadot Palace. And there's also the pool bar, which is more or less okay. It's being used as an office right now for the architects who are sort of, bringing all the designs to finality. And the pool itself is okay. It's actually kind of nice and warm. I was swimming up by the sort of fountain part of the pool, and this is pretty hot now with the toaster running to heat it.
Full steam, yeah.
And it's summer, yeah. But, yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. I mean, I think a lot of people have dreamt about building a palace around their great vision and the great movement they want to bring to the world. It's so cool that you're building this, and people will be able to visit, what, this decade or next? What do you think?
Next year, as early as next
Whoa.
year. Yeah,
Okay.
hopefully. I mean, it'll depend a bit on the builders and so forth, but like, yeah, I mean, our target is to do early next year, start doing retreats in the bits that are viable, they're usable. Won't be all of it, but yeah.
Cool. All right, look, we're here to talk about fiscal responsibility. I think we're calling it fiscal responsibility with Polkadot.
Mm.
And we've had a good time with inflation so far. It's actually been a great time, but perhaps it's not sustainable all the way to the future. Just to catch everybody up, we have 3 inflation schedules up for vote in OpenGov right now on Wish for Changes. And I will tell you as well, I have seen some preliminary code to implement one of these schedules should it pass. But we have 3 up right now. We have something we're calling hard pressure, and this is really taking it away right now with 16.68 million dot power on the I side. Then we have the medium pressure here, struggling right now, and the soft pressure too. So it seems like people are really leaning into the hard extreme there.
Hmm.
I definitely want to get your opinion later on in the show at what you're feeling, but I think maybe a little bit more context to begin, starting with perhaps why you thought or why you initially brought up this idea of capped and stepped inflation. It was April 28th that your thoughts on this became public last year.
Hmm.
That was during the Gray Paper tour, the first one.
Mm.
What's the idea here? Why does putting ourselves under inflation schedule like this help the Polkadot situation at all?
Well, all right. I mean, this boils down to basic economics, and it's sort of, I would say realization, others would say opinion, that I hold, that we have to understand why a token is worth something, why any token is worth something, whether it's fiat currency or anything else. and there's obviously a lot of there's a lot of psychology in this, but to bring it down to earth, I think I would explain that fiat tokens are worth something essentially because the government insists that taxes are paid in them, right? There is a fundamental requirement for citizens of a nation to pay taxes. This is for their security, yeah. And to pay taxes, they need to buy these tokens. So even if all goods and services were transacted in something else like Bitcoin, whatever else, there would still need to be a basic amount of fiat purchased effectively from the government, well, from the central bank, but effectively from the government, assuming they control the central bank one way or another. This gives it economic value, right? Now you can add on to this all this, various other bits of value, like the fact it is oftentimes the de facto sort of currency on which transactions are paid within the country, and sometimes it's enforced in some way or another with limited amounts of success, depending on the country. But the fact that taxes have to be paid into it is the only thing, at least I myself can point at, that says this has demand, right? It has unmitigatable demand. It has undeniable demand and substantial demand, because it's demand that is proportional to the GDP, right? Assuming that taxation is proportional to GDP. And generally, governments will try and aim for that. Crypto currency doesn't have this. There is no way of holding a gun to people's head and forcing them to purchase the taxation currency in the same way as there is in fiat. There has to be another way of ensuring that there is there is a sensible price, right? And Bitcoin has demonstrated, and it's, as far as I can tell, the only really big thing that has really demonstrated this. I mean, you can argue maybe some of the others have demonstrated it at times, but Bitcoin, in my mind, is the only thing that's really demonstrated the working strategy of this, which is imbuing value by limited supply. Now, limited supply, it turns out, it needs some sort of demand, and the demand in Bitcoin's case is essentially transaction fees, right? But these are insignificant. These are not so relevant, and certainly weren't so relevant in Bitcoin's past, compared to, in my mind, this basis of limited supply. And unless we have reason to believe that we can pull off a sort of fiat value mechanism, like holding guns to people's heads and forcing them to pay large amount of GDP comparative levels of money, and for this it would have to be like TVL, and even Ethereum can't do this, right? As we see more and more TVL being moved off into L2s, and Ethereum basically just becoming a vague kind of settlement layer that finds it hard to actually extract any of that value. I don't see this as being a viable argument. I don't see the government taxation argument as being viable. I think there needs to be this supply side thing as well. And so, and I discussed this with someone who's got a background in economics, degree in economics, and that I rate as being a pretty solid economic thinker. And they were initially quite skeptical, but by the end of the conversation, they became somewhat convinced. And yes, this has led me to really crystallize my idea in this domain. So basically, this I see as is a necessary step to take in order to a large extent safeguard the economic security.
Got it. Okay, so a very compelling argument for capping the supply there. Of course, to get to a capped supply, we at some point need to stop printing tokens. You've suggested this sort of step down, this gradual step down, with different curves that we've presented for vote today. But to the general concept of stepping down to this cap, what do you think? Why do you think that would help us?
Well, this is something I think Bitcoin got right. You see, there's a thing called Schelling points, right? Schelling points are basically inherent instances of environment-based decision making. So basically, they push people to make decisions in some particular way. They push the outcome of a decision, or they just push the time at which they make the decision. And it might be that we want to stretch that out as much as possible. We don't want people to make a decision, right? That's one instance. In that instance, we want to minimize these sort of decision-making Schelling points. And we do that by having a very smooth curve. But in the cases that we actually want to underline that the curve is going down, we want to underline the nature of the fixed supply, then it's very helpful to have really abrupt step curves, right? Where it's like, before this point, X is the case, and after this point, X is no longer the case, right? Because this pushes people into making decisions. And my feeling is that we want people to know about this, to know about the fixed supply, right?
Okay.
Like, we're doing it for a reason, as I just explained.
Yeah, so these Schelling points not only into the future create opportunities for action and changes of behavior, but that initial Schelling point as well could be a significant moment where people can kind of gather around and see what's happening over here.
If nothing else, it serves as an economic promotional activity, a promotional freebie, right?
Okay, yeah.
It's like, look, something's happening, guys, right? And to the extent that we believe this alteration in circumstances is marketable, is positive towards the market, then we should be as loud as we can be. And step curves help us be loud.
Phrase I said at the beginning of the show, and I've been repeating a lot lately, is something that you brought to the table, which is fiscal responsibility. And how I've kind of interpreted that under this idea of pretty much unlimited inflation. It's kind of like we're like a teenager sitting in their room with unlimited credit line and big dreams about how we're going to impact the world and add to the world. But there's really no motivation to get out there and do anything as long as the credit cards keeps being extended. But when we push ourselves under this rigid inflation schedule, these Schelling points are not only about buying and selling DOT, but they also force DOT holders to create value, increase revenue, cut expenses, or face the consequences of reduced income. And so this is a very, from my interpretation, a very motivating factor for the whole network to get on track.
Yeah, and I'll bring up a point here. And this is a point that I think has caused vast amounts of confusion with real economists thinking about crypto and thinking about Polkadot.
Okay.
It's a terminology issue. When economists understand the term inflation, they understand reduction of purchasing power. If you look up inflation right now on Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever your thing is, you won't find anything about monetary base issuance level. You will find, and I did this just an hour ago, you will find, or at least I found, talks about, well, balloons being inflated, obviously, but also the main economic definition, the only economic definition, was of purchasing power reduction. Inflation, when we talk about tokens, are about how fast a token is becoming worthless, right? The faster it's going down in value compared to value in some purchasing power thing. So within crypto, we might say value compared to Bitcoin or value compared to USD, for example.
Sure.
That's what inflation is. What we're talking about reduction isn't inflation. We obviously hope inflation will reduce, but it's not something we can control. What we're effectively reducing is interest rates. And that's what we should be thinking about when we're still sort of, armchair philosophizing, armchair economizing. What we should be thinking about is a reduction in interest rates. Why are interest rates high? Like, we wanted to kickstart the economy and Why should interest rates be lowered? Well, because we want to have people use DOT for things other than holding it, right? Why? Well, probably because we can't do that for it. We can't safeguard the economic foundations by having high interest rates forever. You typically you will have high interest rates when you believe the economy is going, basically when the underlying token is so useful, you need to slow its movement down, right? But if the underlying token is not moving very much anyway, then high interest rates will just cause high inflation, and that's what we're seeing. So little bit of armchair economism there, but this I think should help people with some economic cooling, some economic sort of mindset, understand better what it is that we're talking about. We're not talking strictly about reducing the inflation through some sort of on-chain upgrade. We're talking about reducing the interest rates, or at a push, the sort of issuance levels. And this, I think, ties into your point, which is that we want people to actually use DOT, right, for things like DeFi and stables and transfer and other stuff like transactions. And it's going to be hard to convince them to use it for these things if they're going to make more money just by sticking it in the central bank, right, and watching their balance go up.
Thank you for that. That's amazing. And now, speaking of using DOT for things instead of perhaps selling it, using it to trade for fiat, did you happen to see that data that was released by Parity about suspected selling?
I did.
Yeah. What was should I show it on screen, or what do you think?
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, let me see here if I can pull it up. What was your impression of this compared to your initial assumptions that you were thinking maybe 30% is being sold or whatnot? They've done a couple charts here. So this is Nominator suspected sales. Again, once you look into a centralized exchange, it becomes a black box at some point. They've made some assumptions here, but this yellow line is percentage of assumed sales or suspected sales for nominators. So we're sitting around 30, 60%, somewhere in between there. And then down here is validators, quite a bit higher lately. Yeah. So what were your thoughts about that compared to maybe your assumptions? And did it change how you were thinking about this?
So actually, it's about the level that I was expecting.
Yeah.
I would say it's maybe lower, but no. Especially if you look at the historical levels,
right,
and you don't do percentage in terms of day, but like sort of overall, sort of 6 monthly percentage sold, then I think it's about the level that I was expecting. So around the 45 to 50%, which is huge given how much we're paying out. Right, that amounts to a 250 million ish exodus per year on the basis of our security system. And how much are we taking in for that 250 million loss? Not much. So that's one point. The validator point, I didn't actually look at that graph too much, but having just reviewed it as you brought it up, it brings about a very interesting thing. As the DOT price lowered, the validator sell-offs increased.
Of course, yeah.
Why? This confirms my second feeling, which is that validators are purely cost-based, right? They validators are fiat-based creatures. To this extent, it underlines the point that I did make already once at the Web3 Summit. Validators should be rewarded in fiat, not any old fiat. It should be Polkadot aligned fiat. So some DOT-based stablecoin is what we should be paying out validators in, and we should be hoping that they will retain their DOT-based stablecoin as long as possible. But if they happen to want to exchange it for a bank balance or food or whatever, then we should be facilitating this. Why should we be paying in DOT-based stables? Well, because they're going to sell it anyway. And because it's DOT-based, we at least get to control when the stable is minted, like when it's issued. We can get to control what coin is issued. And potentially we can incentivize some sort of a retention in this. in this token. That's something that we'll have to think about later on. But even just the ability to control the issuance, like when the transaction, the sort of transfer happens or the issuance happens, and the stable that it happens in, that's a huge benefit, I would say, for something that at the end of the day is going to happen anyway, one way or another.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Reducing costs is a big piece of this, and we're going to get into that and validators and stablecoins in a little bit. But I wanted to, before we move there, just talk a little bit about what you called at the Web3 Foundation offsetting. So we have to
Yeah.
offset. And you were talking about making core time more valuable, more useful in a lot of ways. Also, of course, recent news. I don't think I've said it directly to you, or maybe I have, but congrats on taking the captain's chair back
Yeah. Cheers.
at Parity there.
Nice to be
Um,
back.
I heard that there was a big all hands meeting that people were pretty jazzed about. Did you want to talk quickly about kind of your mission, your direction, your vision, and how you kind of make the the assets of Polkadot more valuable for people?
Yeah, I mean, there's not, in due course, we'll be very clear about what it is that we're going to do. But there is going to be a pretty strong change of direction coming. And in many respects, it's back to the roots. It's the sort of we're gonna be re not reimagining exactly, but remembering what it
Hmm.
was that we were all sort of doing this for, and to the extent that we can bring Polkadot to people in useful ways, we will. And that's really where Parity is going to be, and where the foundation's efforts are going to be directed. This there will be strategic deployments of capital, but there will be, on the one hand, and on the other hand, there will be and very much increased centralized effort in developing and delivering products. Parity's at a great in great shape as a product development company. It's taken us a while to get there,
Yeah.
but we have confidence and a very well functioning team. And it's about time the team. So it's taken us a long time to get to a product, a platform that we're kind of happy with, sort of pushing as being the cutting edge and the best that we can be
Yeah.
at being a Web3 applications platform. But now we've done that. We're increasingly landed at that spot. We are going to be focusing on using it ourselves. Right, and there's going to be some interesting product announcements in the coming months, but basically this is a lot of stuff that's been building in the back of my head as to what it is I want to see blockchain be doing for people. Well, we're going to start doing it.
I have to agree that Parity seems like it's in great shape and ready to build whatever you have in mind. Right now, the main product that they're trying to build out, it's all hands on deck, I heard, is to finish this hub concept.
Yep.
That's still going to be completed before we move on to the next big thing.
There will be things that happen that are happening at the same time.
In parallel. Yeah.
So particularly in my avenue of the company, which we call incubation, there will be things happening, particularly around proof of personhood,
Very
some
important.
gaming stuff,
Hmm.
and this will continue. This will grow. But yes, on the sort of more the what we call the acceleration side, dealing more with what is already deployed now, there will be certainly a lot of efforts going into making Hub as good as it can be, making it a really nice smart contract platform, making it a really nice place to deliver and to develop and deliver Web3 applications. But it won't stop there. We will be increasingly building application teams to develop and deliver on this platform. So Hub is not just meant for other people, quite the opposite. We hope it's helpful to other people, much as we hope core time is helpful to other people, but we increasingly intend to be using these resources ourselves, in part to replace our own company-wide and lifestyle applications, and in part to explore the landscape of a Web3 enabled world, particularly with proof of personhood.
Couldn't help but notice that we're having a Google Meet right now.
Indeed, it's on the list. Where it gets prioritized, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's on the list. We have to build the list first.
Okay, so this is very exciting. So we're building this platform. So I just brought up Hub because obviously that's could be a significant source of revenue for the network just through fees, something that we can do with Hub, but can't really do with CoreTime. CoreTime has kind of a different revenue structure, but making Hub like a vibrant place for others to use, but also for us to use and to us to build businesses on. This is a target.
Indeed. And although it's been a long-term goal of Parity to move itself on chain,
Yeah.
this is something that we have not been able to really dedicate ourselves to because we've been too busy building the core platform, basically.
Awesome.
Well, that core platform is slowly coming to fruition with Hub, with proof of personhood, with Jam, with small statement hub, with bulletin chain. The components are slotting into place.
Great. Okay, so that's Hub covered. The other possible source of revenue is CoreTime. You talked about making that more useful. Just in general, do you want to say anything about that, or?
Yeah, I mean, this is to a large extent, CoreTime will be the utility of CoreTime will come with Jam. So Jam is our effective CoreTime utility upgrade, right? It's CoreTime is a very fundamental thing, right? Compute correctness. It's something that was, Bitcoin dipped its toes into and demonstrated was possible. Ethereum dipped its foot into, and it's something that we are really going to try and bring to the world in a big fashion. But it's at the end of the day, it's a means to an end. The end is building useful solutions for people, right? For large social structures of people. This is something that Jam will increasingly facilitate and enable, but it's not something that, and it's, part of me knew this already, right? But another part of me, particularly the bit that was very keen on writing the grey paper, was really hoping that Jam would be a sort of end in and of itself. It's not. So while Jam is an important component of, will become an important component of the Polkadot platform, it's there to be utilized by us, and if they want it to the extent that they can use it, others. But my main concern now is building use cases for this technology.
Well, it's one thing to build the machine, but it's another thing, of course, to build the operating system and then useful products and programs on top of it. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so that's possibly offsetting some revenue out of the way. Now, the other piece of fiscal responsibility is expenses. We have three main expenses: nominators, validators, and anything we spend in the Treasury. Nominators, looks like you want to reduce nominator cost by also reducing nominator risk. That seems like the short term, the near term.
The near term thing, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So removing nominator slashing, possibly removing the unbonding period, these sort of things.
This is these are suggestions that have been given by the Foundation Economics research team. I think they're probably on. They're sensible. I'm behind them. So we want to keep nomination in the short to medium term. We want, essentially, this is going to become interest rates, right? People will lock up their dot. I mean, not really lock it, but sort of put their dot down, slow its speed, and get an interest rate back again. It's not going to be massive, but it's not going to be zero either. It'll be something. We hope the interest rate should be big enough that it's a something that people will want to do, especially if they want to hold dot anyway. But it won't eclipse other ecosystem uses for the dot. That's our intention with interest rates. And this is not a controversial economic standpoint, right?
Yes,
This is
yeah.
what central bankers all over the world are trying to do. That's and in order to make them more like interest rates, they will be zero risk, so there will be no risk of slashing. And kind of the only thing that you'll need to do as a nominator is what you're doing already, which is sort of vote for a validator. Now, this is an interesting thing, and this is something that we might tweak down the line. What exactly voting for a validator means, nominating a validator means, and the algorithm or the sort of game that you're doing when you're being a nominator. This might alter slightly. That's something that we'll have to think about. And then, and also, obviously, the validator game is probably going to alter slightly as well in the sort of short to medium term.
Speaking of the Nominator game, though, and we were trying to parse out what you were meaning yesterday on AAG. We were watching back your presentation, the proof of personhood based Nominator game. Let me take a shot at it. It sounds like I don't put any dot down, but I do put my personhood down. And if I play the
Yes.
game well, I get a bigger piece of the overall reward. And if I play the game poorly, I get an increasingly smaller piece. Is that the game? Something like?
Something like, there's a few caveats to that. So so the game includes selecting a validator that is non-aligned with other validators, that is self-staked, that that we believe has a good reputation within the ecosystem, that will actually that we believe is irrelevant, that will serve Polkadot well. So there's going to be some connection to that. And there isn't.
You mean beyond validating, like beyond?
Well, not beyond validating, but validating right now and validating in the future are two different things, right?
Okay.
Like it's pretty easy to see whether a validator is validating correctly right now, because we just look and see how many points they've got right now.
Yeah.
Like whether they're authoring a block right now. But if we're talking about like a day, 2 days, a month hence, then it's harder, right? And therefore rewarding those who vote correctly for validators that don't screw the network over in the future after their vote. This is something that we want to incentivize.
Gotcha.
So there's that element of it, yes. The purpose of this long term is to ensure that Polkadot's security remains high.
Yeah.
Right? Regardless of what its token's doing. This is crucial, right? And we do this effectively by decentralization rather than strictly economic, what would we call it? Economic assertions and economic modeling, right?
Okay.
It's less of an economic game and it's more of a it is an economic game. It's less concerned. We're less concerned about financial loss, about capital loss, and we're more concerned about ensuring minimizing the risk of heavily aligned forces behind large amounts of validators.
Right, because that's what is required to corrupt the network. You need a certain amount, what is it, 33% or something?
Precisely.
Yeah, to all come together and agree to screw the network.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the purpose of this is to try to decouple concepts like interest rates from concepts like national security. Yeah. Like interest rates are one thing. They manage economy, they manage inflation, right? I'm using inflation in the new sense of in the actual sense of the word, the one that you get if you look it up, which is to say purchasing power of underlying token and changes therein. Because what we're kind of wanting to do is see deflation, right? That's what we want, sort of. I mean, it's in essence, yeah. And this is, or at least I propose that many in the market want that. They want deflation. Well, if we're going to aim for deflation, then we need to have the right tools at our hands. And one of them is decoupling national security from interest rates.
Gotcha. Okay, moving on to validators, real quick. There's a big question because in your presentation 6 weeks ago, you mentioned KYC for validators. This has caused some discomfort among some members of the validator community. Um, some saying, "Oh, just making Polkadot it's going to become less permissionless," things like this. I don't know if that's what you meant, or maybe it is what you meant, but it's worth the trade-off. Did you want to speak to that idea there?
Um, yeah, it's becoming less permissionless. We're not proof of work. We're not a proof of work network, and we
Right.
do not. We're not striving for those same levels of like a proof of work network boils down to, if you look at Bitcoin, what there's 5, 6, 7 tops individuals that could um, see a Bitcoin in whatever fork they wanted
Hmm.
if they collaborated, right?
Hmm.
This is because of this, there's maybe an argument that Bitcoin wants to keep as many people as possible anonymous, to keep those barriers to entry really, really, really low. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wants anonymous people to have a say in where Bitcoin's going, because at the moment, like, if we don't have this, then it does just become a banking consortium.
Right.
Well, the thing is, we have proof of personhood, which is in and of itself anonymous.
Hmm.
Therefore, and our target is to make proof of personhood be the thing that controls the forks effectively. Validators, because they're voted on by anonymous individuals,
Mm.
it's easy enough to switch away from validators to other validators. Therefore, validators do not need this level of anonymity.
Um,
Right? They're disposable in this sense. Now we'll pay them well. We'll pay them enough that not only are their costs covered today, but they're quite likely to want to stay in the Polkadot ecosystem and validate tomorrow.
yeah.
But, and it's a big but, um, if a validator, you know, is doxed in some way, right? It shouldn't matter, because we're decentralizing across a 1,000 entry validator set,
Hmm.
not some 5, 6, 7 oligarch Bitcoin validator system. Yeah.
Okay. So
Bitcoin mining system.
it's a privilege to be a validator, and if you want to be one, then you have to possibly play by these rules.
Yeah.
And the point of these rules is what? To make sure that people don't have multiple validators, like the same organization doesn't have multiple, or
Partly, yeah. So
yeah,
partly it's to try to help enforce diversity of economic forces that are governing the validator set. So
yeah,
to that extent, it's helpful to have people dox themselves. And whether they actually show passports or stuff, or whether they simply, do a TikTok video and say, yeah, this is me, and I'm a validator,
yeah.
I go running, I like fish and chips for tea. It doesn't really matter. The point is that we want to see a person, right? And we want to see that it's a person with agency. That's all that really matters.
Okay, so it might be a little bit of an extension of proof of personhood, or some like attributes of proof of personhood in this context, instead of like a passport sort of thing.
It could be.
Maybe.
Now, it could be.
Yeah.
We'll have to sort of think about the security implications for both, for what direction we take it in. But what we do want is for validators not to be anonymous. Validators we are going to make being a validator a privilege. We are going to make it pay out. We are going to pay in fiat. We are going to give them some sort of medium-ish, potentially even long-term incentive to stay honest, right?
Yeah.
And so in doing so, to join this club, you've got to be honest with Polkadot. Yeah. We need to know that
Mm.
you are actually your own economic force. Yeah. And one of the ways that we do this is by doxing. Another one is that we say, well, you got to have self-stake. We're going to have a significant amount of self-stake. Another one is that you have to be a proven person, right? And we want to know, honestly, how many other nodes you're running. If you want to run 10 nodes, fine, we're okay with that. But maybe, but be honest about it, because we need to know this for network security. Once we take the decentralized model, this stuff becomes important.
Okay, well, thanks for that that information and looking forward to seeing the discussion in the community after that. But you mentioned there multiple times paying out in fiat and stablecoin. Quick detour here. You didn't give it a name, but we've been calling it the revenue pot. This is the new place inflation
Mm,
goes into before it
mm,
gets distributed to validators, nominators, or
mm.
Treasury, or something else.
Yep.
First of all, do you want to give it a different name?
Um, not, no, it's, I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
Uh,
So this is
Probably fine. I don't
the
know. I don't have a name in mind, so it'll do for now.
the main point I think you're making there is decoupling rewards or a
National
Bitcoin like
security,
yeah from
um,
interest
interest
rates.
rates.
There you go. And or what you say is like block rewards from inflation is what maybe more common lingo would be. This is very significant, and possibly we can do what? Go ahead. You just
Inflation. We like let's as a community,
yeah,
let's be responsible and let's use words
the proper
with the correct
words.
meaning, right? If we look up inflation, that's not what we mean. And as soon as we start
Issuance.
talking to people outside of the crypto sphere, conversations get like really problematic. They
Hmm.
start saying one thing and giving one set of advice, and actually it's not relevant advice because they think we are meaning something else. So
Right.
let's be responsible as a community and speak when we're speaking of economics, let's speak using actual economic terms correctly.
Okay, so the two terms we want to use is we're decoupling. One more time,
Like
sorry.
if we're desperate to use the word inflation, at
Okay.
least prefix it with monetary base inflation, like monetary base, because that's the inflation that we're talking about. But this is an overly technical term when actually what we really mean is interest rates.
Could you say
Let's just call it
issuance?
interest
How
rates.
about issuance?
Issuance is okay as well,
Issuance is
sure.
good. Okay, possibly.
Issuance is fine.
So this is something that possibly we could implement in the short term because we don't even have to change anything even before we step down inflation. We can just have this
Mhm.
new place that it goes to before it goes out in its current 1585 split.
Yep.
Um, is it more complicated than that, or is it simply this other place where issuance and possibly other revenue could go?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to have some sort of some means of determining what happens if that pot runs out. So basically, if we're going to decouple like interest rates, so
Yeah,
essentially rewards for nominators and validators and voters in due course, then that we can't obviously can't spend more than we are issuing.
yeah,
So we have to manage this. But in essence, yes, that's what it boils down to. So we there is some issuance monetary base inflation, desperate to use the word inflation, and it goes into this pot, and then from this pot is used to pay out Treasury to the extent that we want to fund Treasury through
hmm
inflation, or through monetary base inflation through issuance, and interest rates to the extent that we want to slow down dot the mobility of dot, and security and validator rewards to the extent that we want to sort of engender a secure network with happy validators that want to keep stay in the network in the future because they think it's a pretty decent cash, pretty decent earner. Yeah.
So the mechanism to make those decisions, maybe we won't talk about that today, but it's worth
Mm.
noting that probably will require a little more agility than OpenGov has proved itself capable of. We'll see.
Yeah, not clear yet.
hmm
One thing yeah, not clear yet, and I think that's something that needs to be discussed in the future. It might very well be that we want to flirt with the idea, at least, of a economics fellowship. So,
hmm
um, with minimum requirements to actually come in into the fellowship. Maybe we can find a night school level economics exam that we can um, run little tests of in spaces that we trust people can't cheat. I don't know, but like we should think about precisely what the mechanism will be, if not straight governance, if not straight referendum.
One thing we have proved that we can do is DCA into stablecoins. Maybe we might do this from the revenue pot or something to achieve this stablecoin payout situation.
Yep.
Um, in the near term, I guess we could dollar cost average into USDC or USDT. Some permissioned risks there, of course.
Mm,
Um, but we also have Holler coming down the line, the
mm.
stablecoin coming out by Hydration. You were speaking of a native stablecoin as well. Do you want to just toss out your ideas about what this stable token actually looks like in near term
Yeah,
and long term?
yeah, so I'm looking forward to the release of Holler, and I'm looking forward to, sort of making sure that it's well integrated with our with the direction of using stable coins where stable coins need to be used,
Cool.
particularly liking Holler because it's decentralized and it's dot. It
Yeah.
uses dot in order to
Collateral.
become the collateral capital. So this I think is great. I am not. I think we should avoid picking ecosystem winners on strategic parts of the Polkadot protocol.
Yeah.
And therefore, while I want to see Holler well integrated and tap into its liquidity, and supported to the extent that we decide it's sensible to be supporting ecosystem projects. I think for something of this magnitude, Polkadot would be remiss not to have its own native stable that it can point at as a de facto protocol element that puts the dot token and its stakeholders first.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. This you think it's just gonna be backed by DOT in the end, this native coin? 'Cause, I mean,
So I think there is a need for a fully collateral, over collateralized in dot stable,
yeah.
and one that doesn't like. While I want to use any ecosystem, I want to facilitate the use of any ecosystem stable that uses dot that is algorithmic and decentralized. I do think that there needs to be um, uh, a baseline one that
I get it.
is Polkadot governance controlled. This is because it's too much of a strategic risk otherwise, basically. I would prefer to use something like Holler over USDC, USDT
Sure,
by
yeah.
a massive margin, right? So to the extent that the pure dot stable doesn't exist, Holler is what I would want to be pushing towards usage. But to the extent that we need to, meet users at their doorstep, then maybe we do have to integrate USDC and USDT into whatever system or systems that we are going to be using stables for, like validator payments. We'll see.
Massive,
But
yeah.
so the first thing is that yes, I do believe that there is a need for a Polkadot native stable that is over collateralized, right? Something that we can say, if you're holding this thing, you have a pretty strong guarantee that it's gonna hold its peg, like DAI level sort of guarantee, right? Beyond that, I think there is an opportunity for a more experimental and aggressive dot native stable-ish coin. So not one that is fully collateralized all the time, but one that is one that can fulfill a purpose where there is a higher acceptance of risk to the price not being exactly some particular peg, right? So this is why I call it stable-ish. It's something where we lower that that conceptual, that psychological requirement a bit. Not enough that we hope that's not enough such that our hopes on it being useful to people that want a stable token are dashed, but also not enough that we constrain ourselves and straitjacket ourselves into having to, over collateralize and therefore have huge capital costs.
I see it. It's just softening the volatility basically. Dot hyper volatile and somewhere in between dot and a stable token.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this you'll understand. This is something that is it's a difficult problem to solve. Like
Yeah.
it's a very, very difficult problem to solve. And we've seen what happens
No, I was
when
just gonna
people
say.
don't solve it right.
Mhm.
So it's something that we're dedicating a lot of brain, that I'm putting in a lot of brain power, and that some clever people around me are also putting in a lot of brain power. And I hope that by the end of it, we're going to have something that isn't going to put other algorithmic stables out of business,
Yep.
right? It's because it's gonna be for a slightly different use case, but is still something that is going to be very valuable to the world.
Awesome. Okay, hey, quick comments on Treasury spending. Treasury spending is getting a lot more mature in my opinion. I watch it very closely. But we're going to be taking a cut to Treasury income as well if we step down issuance. So
Mhm.
what are your thoughts on Treasury right now? Just a few minutes if you have any ideas.
Yeah, so one of the things that Parity will be more active on is developing out treasury or governance level mechanisms, like on-chain mechanisms for treasury management. I don't
Nice.
want to see the treasury evaporate. I do want to see a much more disciplined um, spending mentality
Hmm.
with clear criteria. And to this goal, to this aim, Web3 Foundation will be becoming active in treasury voting. It's something that I've generally steered it away from as best I can,
Hmm.
on the basis that we want to retain, we want to allow the sort of decentralized elements of the ecosystem to sort of bloom and blossom and all the rest of it. But
Yeah.
my feeling now is that we're at a point where we need strong direction for spending, and we need to become a lot more disciplined with the things that are really just opportunistic and of extremely unclear value proposition. And to this aim, I think the foundation's much more conservative view on spending is a much more strategic, increasingly strategic view on spending, is going to be a big value add toward Polkadot. So I'm unleashing the voting keys, and we're gonna be more active. We're gonna be very active. And we're going to be opinionated. Sorry, but that's the way it is.
And you're going to
Um,
be participating like with feedback and whatnot as well. It won't just be a situation where people get struck down and don't know why. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, because
Absolutely.
yeah,
But I mean, it depends, right? So there's a lot of treasury proposals, and there's a lot of crap out there. So the ones that are
some things aren't worth the
that are
comment,
crap,
of course.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to be a pretty terse response. From me anyway.
Yeah.
There's a board for spending, and I'll be on the board, right? So
Great.
from my perspective, I don't have time to be wasting with this,
Of course.
commenting on very basic procedural elements or very basic mindset elements.
Hmm.
So it's going to be terse, but we will put out our spending criteria. It's something that I've actually been working on over the past few months with Poker World, trying to on a back and forth of like, what is it that I personally think is strategically sensible to be spending Polkadot treasury funds on, and I
Mm.
think that's getting to a pretty well, from my perspective, a pretty well concrete position. The foundation won't necessarily take exactly that position, but to the extent that it's influenced by me within this sort of spending committee, then that will be its position, or that will be a component of its position.
Someone in the
Um,
comments right now is saying, finally, W3F has to take responsibility for its bags and vote. Looks like people have been calling for this sort of direction.
yeah, well, it's happening.
Very good.
And
People are saying people are pumped about this. This is good.
good. Um, there will be, as I said, this is going to be a sort of a back to the roots thing. So what this is sort of what, just to dovetail it back to what we were bringing up at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, we're not going to be putting our fucking brand on Adidas trainers, right? This is not what I mean by strategic spends. I mean, um, um, we will identify products that we think are opportune, have have the potential to deliver substantial value into the dot token directly, not through third parties. Um, We will develop those products, and to the degree that we need strategic spending, we will deploy capital. That capital will come in part from the foundation and in part from the treasury. To the extent that we want to get Dot or Polkadot specifically out there to the mass market, we will not, or I will not be afraid of deploying capital of the foundation and the voting power of the foundation. We are developing a cutting edge proof of personhood system that is perfect for mass airdrops that are meaningful to large amounts of people. And we will be using these funds for getting eyes on Polkadot in the most Web3 manner that we can.
That's great. That's so exciting. And bringing people in who aren't already part of this little crypto Twitter bubble can't come soon enough. By the way, I just want to say I know OpenGov got a lot of flack because it was kind of this public facing piece of Polkadot, but in my opinion, it was a massive success. And there was waste, of course, but the growth and the maturity and the development
Mhm.
as a DAO has been an amazing experience and
Mhm.
experiment. And so thanks for giving us that opportunity to get this far.
No, good. I mean, and it's not that OpenGov's going anywhere,
No,
but we will be augmenting it with better on-chain methods and mechanisms for decision making for spending to make it as transparent as possible with integration into um, um, more traditional public channels. One thing that I haven't gone into is the Polkadot website. This is something that I'm going to be taking a pretty hands-on role, and that I've already been taking steps to ensure it sees substantial development in the direction that I want.
nice.
And integration, like we have a number of public interaction points, a number of public interfaces. These need to be that we may end up with others, but we need to identify them, which we are doing. We need to bolster them, assuming that we believe that they are valuable public interface points, and we need to tie products into them. And this is something that we have not done very well. And it's something that we will be really focusing on. So we're going to be optimizing our public interface points like conferences, parties, websites, wallets.
Great.
We will be making great products, and we will be tying these great products into these public interface points.
Very good. Gavin, it's been nice to have you here. Let's go back to the votes at hand right now. So just to catch
Mm.
everybody up, we have these three issuance schedules up for vote. We're trying to so we're trying to select one and then get it implemented, in the near term, maybe after 1.8. And then we can claim, while the market is still where it is, that we have a cap supply. Step downs in all the issuance schedules is Pi Day. Pi Day starting 2026 and every 2 years. So have you had a chance to review these schedules? You and I have been, in consultation throughout this period, but you never
We
told me
have,
to
haven't we? We've had a few conversations.
You'd never told me to
Um,
put up these particular schedules, so I'm very curious to know what you think about these three schedules here.
do you want to put the graphs on
I'm
so we
gonna put
can
them up, yep,
have
and then we
something to
can
point
take a
at?
look here. Window, I think it is. I think it's this one. There we go. Okay, so yeah, this is the hard, but we can compare them all right here. So here they are, side by side by side.
Mm.
Um, the hard pressure, 2.1 billion cap, medium pressure the same, soft pressure is that pi billion. Right down to the digit, all 2 years. And then, yeah, these are the steps here. But you can really see them better on the graph. So this blue line is the issuance. The hard that's winning right now, that's that steep first step down, about 54% step. But because it's a percentage of remaining supply,
Mm.
this asymptotic curve, we those steps become less severe as we
Yeah,
go on.
yeah.
Medium less severe up top, about a 30%, is it? A 30% cut or yeah. But it actually is a little bit more severe after 2030 than the hard.
Yeah.
So a little bit more issuance up front to play with. But this ends a lot sooner as well, reaches the cap like 60
Mm.
years sooner or something. Soft, it doesn't seem like anybody's interested in soft. So I don't know if it's worth discussing, but maybe you are.
No, no. I mean, I'm pretty on board with hard, to be honest.
You're on board with hard, yeah?
I'm pretty
Okay.
on board with hard. I mean,
Oh shit. Okay.
I my main I like I think numbers are important. I think you know it's nice that we have round numbers for fundamental economic properties. Um, just because it's like you know with the curves with SECP 256K1 versus what's the other one? P1 is it? That was the official standard SECP curve. It's like for these mass systems where we expect buy-in of everyone,
Hmm.
it's crucial that they don't think there's any jiggery pokery. Like that you have to be. It's like kind of wearing Sunday best clothes. You know, you
Yeah.
have to be at your very most transparent. And one of the ways that we can be very transparent is choosing numbers that are already there's already Schelling points around them, right? There's already they're already in the public mindset. So this concept of like using the pi digits, this concept of using 21 because Bitcoin's already using it. This is valuable to me from a perspective of making a fixed issuance curve. So I'm to the extent this I would say is in some sense more important, or at least as important as the specific shape of the curve, because this is you know it's almost like a dark art. You know, it's we don't really know how much we're going to be needing to spend on national security. Not really. We don't really. We can model it a bit, but providing we have this kind of buffer pot to some extent, that gives us a big sort of amount of leeway, um, and therefore, I think really we should be looking more at the psychological element. What is it that the market, that people are going to be most receptive to? And in my mind, this is two things. It's clear change in economic direction. Second thing, no jiggery pokery with the numbers. Like just totally transparent selection of numbers. So using 21 billion, 13 mil, the pie percentage. This is good. So this is why I'm behind the hard model.
All right, sounds good. So we're talking 2.1 billion dot cap, step down every 2 years. We're going to take a 13.14% of the remaining supply every step on Pi Day every 2 years, and should reach the cap 2160. Hope to see you there. Final request of this remark is to enshrine in Jam. And this is going to be pretty cool. So we'll be able to announce that we have a cap supply if this were to pass, and then perhaps if this 4 year cycle continues, things will start to wind down in the market. But Dot will have this big event coming up where we cut issuance by 54%, so that should be pretty cool. Then in the Bitcoin off season, we'll have another step down, and then another step down when Bitcoin steps down the next time. Oh, sorry, I think I did that wrong. Sorry. We'll step down with Bitcoin on the next step, and then we'll have kind of this off-season step,
Mm.
Bitcoin step, and that should be pretty cool. It's within a few weeks of Bitcoin step as well. So if hard pressure were to pass, this would be in 12 days minus 3 hours. Confirmation period will finish. We'll probably have to wait for medium to finish, I guess, as well, but not a lot of life there. And then we'll try to do a 1.8.1 patch. Does that sound all right?
1.8.1.
One?
This is for the release
Yeah,
version.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, work for me if it's
If it
I
works.
mean that's more the Polkadot release team. So
Okay, yeah,
that's-
we'll keep talking to them. Sounds good. Okay. All right. Thanks for thanks for your opinion here and your time here today. Anything else we want to talk about? Okay. Well, no. One thing I want to say, one more thing I want to say. I call these hard, medium, and soft pressure because it does put us under a lot of pressure. We do this hard pressure. We have to get to work on cutting expenses, so that we have some rainy day funds left in the revenue pot. And yeah, we have to get to work supporting Parity and building all these products and
yeah.
promoting them, getting people onboarded with the proof of personhood airdrop. There's a lot of work ahead for dot holders. It's going to be a little bit more involved than waiting around in other ecosystems for somebody to do something.
Indeed. This is this is just a necessary um a necessary realization. We should be honest and upfront about it, but there's no other way. I do not believe there's another way. And what is it for if not building great products? Like if we don't see, like, if a job's worth doing well, it's worth doing yourself.
Great. Well, let's do it together. Nice to have you on, Gav. Really appreciate your vision and leadership. Welcome back to the captain's chair, and looking forward
Cheers.
to the next few years under a new issuance model. We'll see how this plays out. Hey, are you guys going to vote on this? Are you going to vote on this?
I'm happy to let the public, the non-me aligned economic forces,
Let's see what people say.
put their opinion down. It's heartening that this seems to be that we seem to be in agreement. I think if this were the different, if medium pressure had the massive amounts of green and there was no support for hard, then it would be a longer conversation, a longer back and forth, and I'd sort of negotiate a bit more. But like as it is, it's like we seem to be pretty well aligned, me and everyone else. Like, and especially, I know that there's some whales that are voting nay, but they're obviously not voting too much in favor of the other things, and there seems to be a plurality, at least, of wallets that are in favor. Like almost what's that, 7 or 8x number of wallets that are voting aye.
Way more so on the hard cap. We have 183 accounts voting aye. This is nested, so all delegations.
Okay.
14 accounts against.
Oh, and 14. Okay, yeah. So more than 10x. Like what's that? 15x or something. So yeah, I'm pretty. We'll see how it goes. But if I need to do a tie break or something, I'll do it. But I'm hoping that I won't need to.
We have Donald Murray coming in since your support. He comes in on the aye 30,000 dot there. Oh no, so 5,000 added. What else? Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you is that we have a lot of 100K plus votes on the I side here who have otherwise never participated in OpenGov. So
good sign.
That is good. Cool. Gav, thanks. I have to ask you just one question after we get off the air, so just stick around. But thank you very much for being here. And we'll see everybody soon. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you later.
Cheers, Gabe. Cheers, Jake.